Hello everyone, I am one of your peers from the CRJ 23 course with Professor Rodriguez, and today I will be talking about the article Turning Off the Schools into Prison Pipeline by Harry Wilson, and the presentation is by me, Angelica Perez. So now I will be talking about Harry Wilson's biography. So Harry Wilson is a professor at ICF International in Washington, D.C. He works with the board of the National Network for Youth and co-founded the Federal Mentoring Council. In his role as an Associate Commissioner for the Family and Youth Services Bureau, he represented HHS on the Coordinating Council at OFIDP and was the leader of the President's Mentoring Children of Prisoners initiative. Harry spent the first 2 decades of his career at Stark Commonwealth in Michigan in various roles, including youth worker, trainer, and administrator. Now I'll be talking about some key terms that I found on the article, which were fervor, which is an intense and passionate feeling. Carte blanche is when you are to complete freedom to act as one wishes or thinks best. Insubordination, when you are defiant of an authority or refusal to obey orders. Sacrosanct, when regarded as too important or valuable to be interfered with. And funnel, a cone-shaped utensil with a tube at the apex for conducting liquid or other substance through a small opening, as into a bottle, jug, or the like. So now we'll be summarizing the article, Turning Off Schools into Prison Pipeline. So in the article, Turning Off Schools into Prison Pipeline by Harry Wilson, he explains how the students have disruptive behavior, and the disruptive behavior is handled by suspending or expelling the students from schools. If the students are expelled or suspended, their behavior will keep worsening and they won't be able to find a job, so they would be more likely to engage in criminal activities. The rate has quadrupled from 25% since the 1980s. And the population of the students that it is happening to is of young African American men. Harry Wilson is trying to make programs so there would be less disruptiveness in schools. So now we'll be talking about some programs and policies that I would add. So some of the programs are a professional learning community, which is when the educators give a chance so the students could be able to give more management in students' learning. Some of the policies that I will produce is counseling for students that might have problems with family or other personal problems, because there might be students that have went through many traumatic events with either a family member or themselves, and they might have that in their minds. Giving the students options instead of expelling them, and investigating why are most disruptive behaviors happening. And if it's because of uniform, because of clothing, make a stricter uniform policy. And this is very important because in most schools, that's what happens when the schools don't have a strict uniform policy. And if they enforce it, it'll lead to less disruptive behavior in classes and around the school. So now I will be showing you guys a video that I found on YouTube that's by the name of How the School to Prison Pipeline Functions.
What would you do if your child was placed in handcuffs for crying at school? Well, this was a reality for a 7-year-old black boy in Missouri, and it isn't. What would you do if your child was placed in handcuffs for crying at school? Well, this was a reality for a 7-year-old black boy in Missouri, and it isn't rare for black and brown kids across the country. Whether it's getting arrested for talking back or doodling on a desk, In-school policing is harming students by taking them out of school and helping funnel them into prisons. It's called the school-to-prison pipeline. We're talking about a structure of codes and punishments that criminalizes kids as early as preschool and increases their chances of ending up in the criminal justice system. 99% of New York City school children who were handcuffed in 2016 were Black or Latinx. This happens when school resource officers are called into classrooms to discipline students, sometimes for something as small as violating a dress code or grabbing candy from a teacher's desk. If the offense doesn't lead to an arrest, Black and brown students are still subject to harsher punishments than white students. Black students are 4 times more likely to be suspended than their white peers. Sometimes students are kicked out of school for basically just being Black. Like in cases across the country where Black girls were suspended for rocking braids or an afro. So, where do students go after they've been kicked out of school? Research shows they're 3 times more likely to end up in the juvenile justice system within a year. This is all part of an endless cycle. Once kids touch the juvenile justice system, they're 67%.
So in the video, how the school to prison pipeline functions, they explain how children are put in handcuffs, especially the African Americans. They also speak about how they would also arrest them because of just doodling in the table. In this video, they also explain that 99% of the students that get handcuffed are African Americans or Latinx, and they explain how Black students are more likely than white students, and sometimes they would just be kicked out of school just because of their skin color. Also, they explain how Black students get harsher punishment than white students, and how Black students are 4 times more likely to be suspended than white people. In the video, how the school to prison pipeline functions, shows a visual of what Harry Wilson explains in his article. So now I will be summarizing an article that I also found that's related to the topic, school to prison pipeline. So the author is Emily Owens, and she explains that having the zero tolerance policy and SROs in schools improves community relationships with the police, and it stops disruptive behavior with students. Emily also explained how the school resource officers have seen how there has been a lot of drug offenses in and around the schools, and it has mostly been with students under the age of 15. Everyone has been trying to accomplish the timing and size of all the federal grants that have assigned by the Department of Justice Community-Oriented Policing Services and the Cops in School programs, which would allow the agencies of enforcing the law so there can be more school resource officers. This article, Testing the School to Prison Pipeline, is similar to the article, Turning Off School to Prison Pipeline, because they both show how the African American children and Hispanics are receiving more punishment than their white classmates due to the disturbances in schools. Both articles discuss about the school to prison pipeline with their counter arguments. So now I have some open-ended questions for you guys. One of the open-ended questions is, what do you think about the zero tolerance policy in the school to prison pipeline? And what are any benefits or challenges with the policy? What did you find surprising within the article? And with which point of view do you agree the most? Do you agree with Harry or Emily? And why? And finally, what are some issues with school environment resembling prisons?